So yeah, I'm Philip. I'm the senior product manager for Studio, and I've been that since December. So not almost a year now. I'll walk through the agenda here of what we're doing. First, I wanted to talk about what we're hearing from customers. Then a few changes that I've implemented as the PM. A new release schedule is coming out, as well as the beta for 10.0 is out right now. We posted the last beta yesterday. So that's almost completely feature complete. Some changes to our end of life or end of support policy for 9.x. We're actually extending it, so there will be more support. You don't have to immediately go to 10.0. And then important changes to make sure that you're successful with 10.0. Another item that I've changed was also how we version. So I'm doing more of a semantic versioning. So there will be breaking changes between, say, 8 to 9, 9 to 10, but there should be no breaking changes from 10.0 to 0.1 or something like that. Unless there's a major version upgrade, there shouldn't be any breaking changes. So we're going to work on what those changes are so that you will be successful when you upgrade. And then the last part is what are we also working on in terms of what's coming soon within the next 3 to 6 months. Right. So I'll go forward. So the voice of the customer, the thing that I've been hearing about is actually about quality and communication. So recent releases were not up to perceived quality standards, and I agree. So that's why we're changing a lot of things to address that. This won't be an issue going forward. We're going to put a lot of effort into that. And then the other one, why I say perceived, is we didn't communicate some changes proactively enough. So some of you guys might be here because of the emails that I sent out, letting you know of the changes that are happening with Windows and Docker and stuff like that. We got that off of licensing information, so we can give you feedback, and it's not a marketing email. It's coming from a different domain that I control, so that you guys are prepared and know what's going to happen. So that's why we're doing this. So speaking of the release schedule, we are switching to a quarterly release schedule with annual major updates. So this would be the major update, the 10.0. But we're still going to keep monthly patches. Those monthly patches are only going to be available for Studio Enterprise, so not the free version of Studio. But those are going to have all those fixes. And the reason we're doing that is so that we can address customers' problems much, much faster. I don't want you guys waiting around for a fix and a quarter away. And also give us more time to fully bake some of these features and get feedback, and also do more soft betas for some features that we're doing. So we might put a beta that you opt into inside of a patch, but you wouldn't know about it unless you've been working with me or you check the release notes or you really want it or something like that, and you'll opt into it. There won't be any breaking changes. So that's one big thing that we're working on right now, and that's starting as of the 10.0 release that we're implementing this. From there, again, there is a new beta release. I'll send the email out after to all the users for this release. It's also in the forums, but there is a new beta. The big thing with 10.0 is that we've upgraded Selenium 4 and the later version of the Appium Java client. So a lot of mobile issues, a lot of web issues have been addressed, and we really want to get feedback, make sure everything's working for everybody. As far as performance, that we did notice a very big performance improvement with a lot of our keywords and execution time. So that's one of the big things with 10.0. Going a little bit forward there, we are also extending the end of life policy. So previously, we had an end of life policy of N-1, which was we would support 10.0 and then we would support 9.7, or it was 9.7, 9.6. So there's a lot of upgrades that people would have to be forced to do. We're doing it with nice, clear guidance. We will continue to support 9.x until July 2025 for maintenance development, meaning we won't be putting new features into it, but if you have problems, security vulnerabilities come up in scans or stuff, we will work to address them. But new features will be in the 10 line. So this makes it where you don't have to be forced into migrating scripts or anything like that. It's more controlled and easier to dip into. And then the big question is, what do we need to do to be successful in 10.0? So with that one, the biggest thing that you'll run into is the desired capabilities, which I have a screenshot on the next page of what exactly I'm talking about, will need to be updated to abide by the new W3C specification. basically all that you would need to do, and we will put this in the documentation, is previously you could put like app, device name, etc., just like that. Now they need to be predicated with either Appium if it's an Appium one, or if it's like browser stack or Lambda test, you'll predicate it with their tag. And that should be everything that you need to do for like 99% of the use cases. Because now we're switching to, inside of Selenium, it's called the options class over desired capabilities. So that will probably affect quite a bit of people, but it's a very easy thing to change, and we can work on helping you if you have any questions with that. The other item is that Windows testing will be temporarily removed. So this is one of the emails that I sent out because of incompatibilities with WinApp Driver. If you've used desktop testing, you probably know what WinApp Driver is. It was a Microsoft tool, but Microsoft stopped supporting it. We've tried reaching out to the PM there. We had contacts there, and nobody's been talking to us. So we're making the decision to just bring that in house. WinApp Driver isn't open source, so we're gonna work with either some of the open source stuff that's out there, or just build our own driver to extend that support. But it won't be ready until, well, it'll be ready before the end of life of 9.7. That's the big reason why we did the end of life, to make sure that everybody's supported and can still use Katalon without causing any sort of issues. The advantage, though, when we can bring it inside of Katalon, probably just make our own driver, right, is the performance. We've noticed a lot of performance issues with WinApp Driver and how they do XPath and location. So we should be able to address a lot of that when we have our own source code and we can change it. That's something to look forward to. The other item that we sent out an email for was the Docker latest tag. So if you've ever used Docker, you probably just did the Docker pool of Katalon Studio Katalon, or possibly Katalon Studio latest. Those both point to the latest, which hasn't been the latest. We haven't updated it in quite a while. It actually points to 8.6.9. So what we are going to do is make it where latest means latest. We'll point it to 10 when we release 10. But if you want to just do a quick change right now to make sure that your pipelines don't break or anything like that, you can change your config, your YAML, whatever it might be, wherever you've had this configured, to use 8-latest. We've created quite a few tags that point to the major versions now, so we can do those patch updates without having to do any migration. So your pipelines will keep working. There's actually a few available on Docker Hub. There's a little typo here, but like 8-latest, it points to 8.6.9. There's also a 9-latest that points to the 9.7.2. And there's also a 9-latest Slim, which has a few items that most people don't need removed. So those are quicker to download and have less libraries bundled in it. So I always recommend using 9-latest-Slim if that would work for you. If you don't need to use Gradle or WebDriver Manager, that would be my recommendation. Some other items, though, is if you are on 8.6.9 to go to 9 or to go to 10, there was some migration that you had to do. So one of them is 8 to 9 switch from Java 8 to Java 17. So if you're just using our keywords, there should be no changes. But if you had custom keywords that might have been using older Java classes, then you may need to update that. Or if you have jars that were compiled with just 8 instead of 17, you may need to recompile them. And the other item is that in the Cucumber packages, you had to move them around from 8 to 9 because of how we changed our handling of Groovy. But all of that is documented on our release notes and our documentation page. No, Microsoft did not confirm that they dropped WinApp Driver, but I'm reading between the lines as there's been no updates for years. So to answer your question, if did Microsoft confirm if they dropped WinApp Driver support? Right. Cool. Let's check the chat. Okay. All right. I'll take a quick pause there if there's any questions, or we do have a Q&A at the end before we go into what's coming. Any questions or additional questions? Cool. All right. So for what's next, we are looking to revamp the HTML and PDF reports inside of Studio. This also includes creating our own test case level reporting. If you use test stops, they have a test case level reporting, but Katalon Studio itself did not. This is a preview of what we're looking to create with test suites, or test suite collections in this case. Nice, nicely formatted, easier to use HTML report, to make it more pretty and more useful for everybody. And also, because we're creating test case level reports, we can lower the size of these, because that's probably one of the biggest complaints that we get with very large test cases or test suites, is that they get too large to write, or there ends up being problems when you add a lot of screenshots to it. So if we're able to cut them into smaller pieces, that solves a lot of the issues with reporting. Let me check the Q&A one more time. Yeah, you should still be able, so answering a question about web drivers, you should still be able to upgrade them. Yeah, if there's a problem where you can't update web drivers anymore, we will address it. The only way that becomes an issue is if they stop supporting Selenium 3.14. But it doesn't seem like that they're going to do that before July. Right, and these are some of the other, going back to the reporting, these are some of the other reports that we're making. On the left pane here is the test case report that we plan on implementing. On the right pane would be the test suite report. We are also, so that's one of the very first things that we're working on after 10.0. The next one would be Studio Assist improvements, like adding conversational ability, the ability to copy code, other AI enhanced functions. That's just a little preview of what we're happening. I cut the little chat part off, but that's what we're working on, and helping to improve the context and the accuracy of Studio Assist. So those are the two big things for 10.1.0 that's coming out in January. And then from there, this is more of a personal project of mine to an extent, or perhaps passion. The Smart Weight and Smart Locator extensions, I'm trying to come up with a way, and we've actually have it nearly implemented, where we don't need those extensions going forward. You can use something called BiDi, or bidirectional, so W3C protocol, and it won't install the extension. So it'll just still have the same functionality, Smart Weight, Smart Locator, be able to find things, but there won't be any extensions to have to whitelist to install. If you have a block on unpacked extensions, and you won't have to deal with that anymore. So that can help with execution quite a bit, where you can execute wherever and you don't need to go through any IT department. And then this is a bit of a longer term plan, is improving the UI. We do want to address the issues with the icons, with the dark mode, make it easier to leverage, remove a lot of the icons that aren't necessary on the top bar, and improving the contrast and items like that, especially with dark mode, to make it more pleasant to leverage. So that is going to happen in the first half of 2025 calendar year. And that's what we're going to start working on. That might take a while to resolve. And then from here, we'll go to Q&A. There are other things on that, like, of course, replacing WinApp driver, but those are the big items that we're working on right now. I'll go over to Q&A. So again, for the web drivers, you should be able to keep upgrading. If you run into any issues, please open a support case and we'll address them.
Philip, will most of this information that you're sharing today be located also in the release notes for KS10?
Yes. The future stuff we can't list in the release notes, but all the changes will be in the release notes.
Excellent. And when is the audience expected to see that on a release note?
No later than the release. That's right. October 30th, but we'll work on trying to get that out sooner.
Okay, sounds good. Let me go ahead and paste the go ahead and share with the audience the link to our docs, so all of you can keep an eye on that as well. There you go.
For the Kobaton changes, it shouldn't affect it, even though they are still using desired capabilities. We've found a way to resolve it, and it's past the majority of testing so far. We're not completely done with testing. So at this point in time, Kobaton should work just the same that it does now with Katalon Studio. Oh yeah, so the issue with WinApp and Selenium is the compatibility issue between WinApp only supports Selenium 3. So that's one big issue. It's mainly through the desired capabilities that issue happens. That and doesn't support the W3 spec for drivers on the own, I think it's called the JSON wire protocol. So there's always going to be compatibility issues. It'd just be easier for us to build our own, is what it sounds like. That's what we plan on doing. But the reason why we are upgrading before we build our own is just because Selenium 4 has a lot of advantages. A lot of our customers use web testing predominantly, so we want to get that advantage out while also taking care of the users that use desktop by extending the support. So to answer the question of, we have a lot of test cases with desktop app testing. If Microsoft does not support WinApp driver, do we need to rewrite all the scripts using the new tool? You shouldn't have to. If you're using our keywords, then we plan on supporting the same keywords. We'll just make the performance better. So there may be some changes that you have to do when we create our own WinApp driver. The main one would be if you're making custom keywords, those may need to be updated. And if we improve the performance, you might need to add some weights. That would be kind of the double-edged sword of increasing the performance of the keywords. If it does execute faster, then you may need to add some weights. But for now, Raj, for your custom keywords, just continue to use 9.7 for desktop testing. Again, it's still supported. If you run into issues, open a support case. We will work to address them. We won't be adding new features in 9.7, but we can still take those feature requests and see what we can do in the 10.x line. Especially if it's desktop, we're going to be working on desktop. We'll tackle that then. Raj, I don't quite understand the question in terms of consider custom keywords are in scope for you. Like for desktop testing, so depending on what you're doing, it should still work. It just depends. If you're using some old Selenium 3 capability, you may need to update them. So one of the things that I would suspect will change, again, we haven't fully scoped this out yet, but one of the items would be like desired capabilities would have to be changed to fit the W3C spec. So if you're setting those pragmatically in your custom keyword, they may need to be updated. But again, for now, like this is going to be 9.7 is going to be supported until end of July, and I plan on having something out far faster than that. So we can always work through, if you do run into issues, open up support case and we'll work to address them. Any other questions? Or I'll ask again, how do you guys feel about it? These changes, this is a bit of a different style of webinar than most, I think, Katalon does. Yeah, we'll work on it. In terms of not waiting until July, we're going to work on more communication. So one thing is, like, once we start building this out, we're probably going to start in February for the WinApp driver replacement. I'm not sure how long it will take. We do know who uses desktop, kind of. That's why we're able to send the email. Can't really see what you're doing, but we do have that information, so we can send emails to make sure that you guys can try it, and we'll keep you up to date with the desktop testing. One thing though, this webinar was only sent to paying or customers basically. It's not for users. So when we do bring back desktop testing, it will likely only be in the paid version of Studio, because it is going to be basically it's more expensive for us to create it than using WinApp driver. So we'll have to make it a paid feature, which shouldn't affect anybody on this call. Yeah, I'm trying very hard not to bring up licensing costs at all if I can. I'm fighting any of those. But if you do have the paid license, then you will be fine. There's no third license or anything like that. It's just going to be, if you have Katalon Studio Enterprise, you get all the features of Katalon Studio Enterprise. All right.
Right. Thank you, Philip. And sorry, go ahead.
I will send an email later today with the link to the beta. Even if you only use this for desktop testing, if you have or use this for desktop and something else, please try it. Try the 10.0 and let us know if there's any issues. We have quite a few weeks left before we release it, so we want to make sure it works for everybody before releasing it, as well as doing a full regression on it. All right, so look forward to my email, and I'll hand it back over to you, Lucio.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Philip, and thank you everyone for dialing in. Again, please reach out to us if you have any questions, or go ahead and take a look at the release notes to see the latest and greatest on the product. We will, as Philip said, we will try to do these as frequently as possible so we can keep you up to date with everything that is happening with Studio. And with that, thank you everyone. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon.
There's a question there. Can we keep
go for
versions? I don't understand it. So Katalon Studio still will integrate with test ops. That's not going away.
I think I know what they're asking. So whether it is 10.0 and 9.7, can you use those two with your instance of test ops?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should keep working.
There you go. All right. Thank you all. Thank you, Philip. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.